The state will not back down on the war against terror despite the nasty events of Somalia. Interior Cabinet Secretary Major Retired General Joseph Ngai has reaffirmed the government's commitment to defeat the enemy, saying the attacked camp will be bolstered. And as KTN's Francis Ontomo now reports, the state is warning those circulating graphic images of the slain soldiers that stern action will be taken against them.
The horror that met Kenyan soldiers in Somalia has received condemnation from all quarters. But even despite the blow, security organs have however insisted that there was no relenting in the fight against terror. Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Ngai has paid tribute to the fallen soldiers, but insisted that the setback will not dampen their resolve.
I want to thank Kenyans who have rallied behind our troops, who have shown that patriotism can make us win this war on the enemy. Kenyans, thank you for standing up for KDF and other security forces. I wish to inform Kenyans that the war against terrorism, radicalization, violent extremism is continuing as planned.
Nkaiseri is however angered by those he says are amplifying the terrorist agenda through sharing and circulating images of the slain soldiers. The head of internal security is now promising serious action against those perpetuating the vice.
We have, and I repeat, we have over and over again questioned that sharing of graphic images of the dead embolden the enemy and bring griefs to those who have lost their loved ones. This will not be tolerated. We are reviewing circulation of the same photographs, and we shall ensure action is taken according to the law.
And although questions have been raised severally on the synchron and coordination of the AMISOM troops in Somalia, the El Ade military base in Somalia where the soldiers were attacked will be beefed up even more by the Kenyan troops.
You don't run away from the enemy. You reinforce. So I'm sure there must have been reinforcement both from AMISOM and from KDF.
Friday evening, President Uhuru Kenyatta expressed confidence that Kenya will finally have the last say in the war against the enemy.
Hawa watu hawatatutisha. Sisi tuko tayari kusimama imara kulinda nchi yetu. Sisi tuko tayari kuhakikisha ya kwamba tutaendelea na shughuli yetu ya kuhakikisha ya kwamba tumeleta amani katika nchi zetu jirani. Na kazi hiyo tutaiendelea, na tunaendelea kushukuru maafisa wetu ambao wanatekeleza kazi hiyo kwa niaba yetu sisi zote.
Francis Ontomo, KTN News, Mombasa.
Right, and we want to talk about the new developments that have occurred in regard to that unfortunate attack. We're now joined by Delano Kilu Longwe, who is a security expert. Thank you so much for joining us on KTN Weekend Prime. I think the question on many people's mind is if we'll ever know the number of soldiers who perished in that attack.
Obviously, Betty, this is a sensitive question, but the answer is yes, we will get to know the number of exact troops that did perish. We'll also get to know the number of wounded, only we will not get this from unreliable sources. So, for example, in the area of the casualties and the fatalities, we cannot get that information as a country from the enemy. It's important that that is verified by KDF or by AMISOM in terms of number of troops lost. But
okay, and why is it taking so long? Because it's almost 48 hours and still no indication about that unknown number.
First of all, this battle occurred on a bit of a wide territory.
Right.
So we have to get to the bottom of the facts at the end of the day. KDF is responsible and AMISOM is responsible to go dig in, verify information, actually do a proper body count, understand how many people are injured, how many are severely injured, save the lives of those who can be saved in terms of any injuries, massive injuries. And first of all, the other thing we need to remember, Betty, at the end of the day, there is a God in heaven. And we do condole the families and the friends of those who have been lost in this very ugly incident that occurred. But the facts will come out. It's early days. You know, in any incident like this, there's never a rush. We are aware that this is not the first time that this type of tactic has been deployed. Last year in June, in a place called Lego, which is about 50 kilometers northwest of Mogadishu, the same occurred, and we lost about 50 Burundian troops from AMISOM. Again in September, this is south, 80 kilometers south of Mogadishu. About a similar amount of Ugandan troops were killed in a very similar type of attack.
Right.
So the information will come out eventually.
One of the other things that is coming out is the question, and critics are asking, is it time that the AMISOM maybe change tact on how they handle these militants? Because from the attack, it seemed like it was properly planned and executed. Do you think it's time for AMISOM to change the strategy after so many years of being in Somalia?
Betty, I think we have to be very open and honest. On this incident, there's been a very massive failure. This similar incident, as I've just mentioned, happened in June in Lego. Secondary incident happened in September against the Ugandan troops, which was very similar. They blew up 2 bridges, and then they drove up a vehicle to the gate and blew that. So it's very, very similar. There's been a failure here in terms of how this has been handled. Yes, we do see a scale up in terms of the types of attacks and the complexity of the attacks. But here, primarily, there has also been a failure in terms of military intel, as well as there could also be culpability in terms of the people in the surrounding areas. You cannot say that a large town like this, all the herds boys who take their herds out to graze, etc., did not notice 200 armed troops coming up towards this particular base. Somebody knew, and there's been a failure here in terms of military intelligence. However, that is not the focus for now. The focus for now needs to be a swift retaliatory attack. The difference between this and the other attacks is here we're talking about approaching Kenya's border very closely. These guys have come, they're knocking on our door. What is our response going to be? We come from a nation that has very strong tribes that have grown up. We have many people who have grown up in terms of dominance and being able to fight. Well, this is a war, Betty.
Right.
It is an actual war. And the only way that we're going to come out of this is if we take this battle to where it belongs.
You mentioned precisely, sorry for cutting you short, that the enemy is already knocking at our door. Do you think it's time that we exit Somalia? It's a question that has been asked so many times, but after this dreadful and unfortunate attack, do you think it's time?
Well, Betty, in this case, it's the same question could be paraphrased. Would you want to have your security guard sitting with you in your sitting room, or sitting at the gate, at the perimeter gate of your compound to protect you? So if we bring our troops back in here, there's a war out there. We allow these guys to mechanize, we allow these guys to build more complex attacks, and from the trend that we can see right now, it appears that they are planning and actually practicing what they want to do in and within our borders. So we have to stop it, we have to nip it in the bud, and we need to then mobilize, invest more, much more. For example, we're investing over 40 billion shillings in the coming general elections. That should be the annual spend to mechanize, automate, and bring technology to bear in terms of this type of war. If we had the technology, which does exist today, infrared, these would have been detected from way off. We should have waypoints. We should have had a clear perimeter around this particular base. It actually means that the culpability needs to be brought to the table. We need to understand why AMISOM is not doing enough to ensure the safety of troops that are actually on the ground. We do have the technology. It exists in other spheres.
Right. Thank you so much, Lila, for talking to us on KTN Weekend Prime. Thank you very much. Right, so moving on to other stories, and a day after the Al-Shabaab terror group attacked a military camp for Kenyan troops serving under the African Union mission in Somalia, AMISOM, the Kenyan government is yet to release the figures of those killed and or injured. In a media briefing Saturday, Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Ngaiseri was not certain on when a report on those killed during the attack at El Ade camp would be made public. Ngaiseri says the figures will be released once the operation against the Al-Shabaab militants is finalized. In the meantime, the government and people of the Federal Republic of Somalia have condemned the attack and paid tribute to the Kenyan soldiers who paid the ultimate price, protecting innocent civilians and neutralizing the Al-Shabaab terror threat. Party Kamimo reports.
The Friday dawn attack on Kenyan troops serving under AMISOM at El Ade military camp in Gedo, Somalia, could be the deadliest since Kenya launched an armed campaign into Somalia 4 years ago to flush out Al-Shabaab terrorists. A statement by the military spokesman Colonel David Obonyo shows the attack happened Friday at 4 in the morning. According to Reuters, the Al-Shabaab spokesman says the suicide car bomber rammed the gates of the military camp before detonating the vehicle. Then heavily armed militants immediately attacked, spraying bullets indiscriminately. The Kenyan troops quickly counter-attacked to repulse the enemy. A fierce exchange of fire ensued. The intense battle between the Kenyan soldiers and the militants continued for over 8 hours Friday. AMISOM condemned the terrorist attack on its military camp and said details of casualties and injuries were still being verified. Apart from mobilizing reinforcement, Kenyan military jets and helicopters carried out airstrikes targeting Al-Shabaab militants. Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Nkaiseri was expected to give an update on the dead and injured, but he was elusive.
I'm talking from Mombasa. I can't precisely tell you 1, 2, 3, 20, 30, 40. I have said a very, very heavy casualty has been inflicted on the enemy.
An Al-Shabaab spokesman was quoted by the BBC saying the militants killed more than 63 Kenyan soldiers. But whereas in the past Al-Shabaab has inflated casualty figures in its war with AMISOM forces for military propaganda, the Somali government and other official estimates often play down numbers.
And the enemy lost more than we did. But that statement will come from once the operation is fully completed.
Nkaiseri says the injured soldiers have already been evacuated back into the country and expressed confidence that Kenya will win the war on terror. In the meantime, Somali Minister for Foreign Affairs Abdurrahman Duale Saturday morning hastily cancelled a media briefing at the Somali embassy in Nairobi. The minister was to update the media on the attack. But the Federal Republic of Somalia later released a statement condemning the attack on AMISOM soldiers by the Al-Shabaab terrorist group. The Somali federal government said it shares the painful loss of the people and government of Kenya, whose sons and daughters in uniform bravely came to return hope and stability to Somalia. The Federal Republic of Somalia said it will not be deterred from achieving its ambitions of peace, progress and prosperity for its entire people and the wider region by the cowardly and criminal acts of those who hide behind a bankrupted and fraudulent interpretation of Islamic religion. The Somali government said the Somali National Army and AMISOM will continue with their joint operations until every inch of Somalia is liberated from Al-Shabaab. Patrick Amimo, KTN News.
Court Principal Raila Odinga has offered to appear before the Public Accounts Committee for questioning over his claims on the Eurobond money. However, National Assembly's Majority Leader Aden Duale has urged those planning to sue Raila Odinga not to do so. He says this is a strategy the court leader is using to maintain his political relevance. Nick Wambua reports.
The Garissa Township Member of Parliament Aden Duale has slammed the court leader Raila Odinga's Eurobond list, terming it as a way of maintaining relevance in readiness for the 2017 general elections. Duale wants those that had planned to sue the former Prime Minister to do so at their own peril. But his statement goes against the Senate Majority Leader Kithure Kindiki yesterday's statement, urging those named in the Eurobond list to sue the court leader.
Is he knows he has a false allegation. So what he wants people to take him to court. Then he goes to court to defend himself. Then big crowds come to the court. Okay, his supporters come to court every day for two reasons. One, to remain relevant until 2017, and two, to make his life relevant.
All the public officers who were recklessly and maliciously named yesterday to proceed urgently to court, not only to seek damages in terms of personal injury to their character, but to sue the court leader for criminal libel.
And as the war of words ensues between the Code Coalition and the Jubilee government over the loss of 140 billion Eurobond money, Bundalangi Member of Parliament Ababu Namwamba has come to the defense of Raila Odinga. Namwamba says that it is not for the government to coerce the code leader to vanish details, but instead the government should give an account of the use of the money in question.
So please stop bothering Raila Odinga. Stop bothering CORD as if Raila Odinga bears the burden of proving anything. He does not. it is government that bears the responsibility to account to Kenyans what they used this money for.
Raila Odinga and your team, it is high time for you people to realize we have a government in place that was elected constitutionally by the people of Kenya.
CORD Principal Raila Odinga has, however, offered to appear before the Public Accounts Committee to give a clarification of his claims.
This, for me, is an act of patriotism because we are the committee of Parliament who, acting on your behalf, is mandated to scrutinize how public resources that have been given to the government have been used for the benefit of the people of Kenya.
Gumbo has asked the government not to politicize the matter and instead give a clear information of how each single cent of the Eurobond money was used.
I know this country has a lot of financial experts. Let this thing be broken down in a way that you can present it to a primary school and they will understand where every shilling of the Eurobond went. This is what we are asking for.
Raila has accused the Treasury officials of using concocted documents to cover up a massive loss of public funds. He has also promised not to settle down until the government comes clean on the use of this money. He further accuses the EACC of carrying out shoddy investigations into the matter. Nicholas Wambua, KTN News.
Prime. Now, Fatuma Ibrahim, the lady from Wajir who had been stabbed by her husband, has finally been discharged from hospital. Fatuma, who had been airlifted to the Kenyatta National Hospital, underwent a successful surgery that saw a blade embedded on her cheek removed. KTN's Timothy Otieno witnessed her release and filed the following report.
A battery of journalists awaits a lady who has become the face of the seriousness of gender-based violence in the country. And when 32-year-old Fatuma Ibrahim emerges from the corridors of the Kenyatta National Hospital at about midday Saturday morning, the joy of the doctors and family here is palpable. Fatuma's plight is one that received national outcry after photos of her then sedated body went viral, with a huge blade sticking out of her cheek following a domestic dispute with her husband that ended violently early January. But today, she has a new lease of life, determined to go back to her 4 children in Wajir after doctors at the National Hospital gave her a clean bill of health.
She's saying that her husband should be arrested because she left her children, her home, and her family, her relative, from far place. So she's requesting that husband to be arrested.
An arrest which has already taken place for 36-year-old Mohammed Wamoje, who has a court date on Monday the 18th to answer to charges of attempted murder.
The unfortunate part for this country, the gender-based violence is on the rise. It's increasing every day. A woman can be killed because of 50 shillings. She cannot account for. And we have various laws that are just lying. It's not enforced. There are no mechanism to enforce it.
Her family says it's not the first time Fatuma has undergone abuse in her marriage, but they certainly hope it will be the last.
And we hope more actions to be taken against him so that such incident may not happen again.
Fatuma now heads home to get some rest before she travels back to Wajir to reunite with her children. And as she leaves, she hopes that her plight will serve as a wake-up call over the rising cases of gender-based violence in the country, one that ought to be acted upon sooner rather than later. Timothy Otieno, KTN News.
Nairobi Senator Mike Mbuvi Sonko and Mombasa Governor Hassan Ali Joho almost came to blows yesterday at the launch of President Uhuru Kenyatta's street lighting project in Mombasa. Now, this is after the two snubbed each other's greetings. The incident that forced fellow politicians to step in follows yet another dramatic incident at a presidential function where the two exchanged harsh words in the presence of the head of state. Trixingaro with the details.
The short-lived show of scorn happened at the beginning of the event when Mombasa Governor snubbed Sonko when he stretched his hand to greet the governor. The Mombasa boss was clearly not in the mood. something that prompted leaders present to intervene and settle the exchanges that had threatened to get out of hand. What followed was an awkward silence between the two leaders who had to sit next to each other. This is not the first time the two leaders are engaging in such a display of public scorn.
Lakini jiuliza kwa nini wakati huu kuitwa karibu? Nyinyi mko na tabia mbaya ya kublackmail president na serikali.
Sonko amesema sana. Na hii ndiyo bei ya demokrasia. Uhuru wa nini? Wa kusema. Lakini Sonko, let me tell you, if I am in ODM, you do not expect me to campaign for you when you're in Jubilee.
Last week's presidential visit in Likoni, the two traded words before the head of state, something that received much condemnation.
Yule bwana Sonko yule kutoka Nairobi alikuja vizuri, lakini baadaye yale matusi aliyoyatoa kumtukana gavana wetu, kusema kweli alitukosea sana.
Mlikataa kumpa Uhuru kura, mkasema mumeibiwa mashamba. Sasa anajaribu kutatua shida la mashamba, mnaleta kasumba mbaya. Nyinyi ni viongozi aina gani ambao msiopenda maendeleo?
Trix Ingado, KTN News, Nairobi.